Self-love at the end of the day is having regard for oneself and one's own well-being, right?
100%.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it gets hairy when we regard other people's opinions more than our own. Like how you feel about me is more important than how I feel about me. You know what I mean? Because that's where it can get
Mm-hmm.
very complicated, where I need you,
Yeah.
myself, for instance, to like me. Forget how I treat myself. How you feel about me is more important. So I regard your treatment of my of me more than what I do of myself. So that's the one.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode. It is me again, Masitejo, and I'm here with Mweketi. How have you been, MK?
I've been good, been good, no complaints. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of months into the new year. So I'm just excited to see what the rest of the year has in plan. It actually doesn't feel like it feels like it's a new year, but it doesn't feel like it's a new year. I don't know if that makes sense. So that's
Mm-mm-mm. We'll go with it. We'll go with it.
that's a little bit of where I am right now. Yeah, and you?
Um, yeah, generally okay-ish. I think I've had a nice or not so nice a stint with the flu. I think it's this up and down of the weather, so I'm feeling a little bit. Yeah, like I've been knocked down, so I'm trying to get back up. And yeah, it's only at the beginning of the year, so it's going to be a very interesting year ahead. Um, with that, and I think just in general, so something I thought about having a chat about is self-love,
Ugh,
right?
okay.
And I think that this is for me, let me not speak for anybody else. Um, sometimes have a bit of a love-hate relationship with self-love, right? Because you know it's important to do. At the best of times, you tend to neglect that self-love. Um, and I think it sort of gets a little bit more heightened, or was for me, kind of when I was sick and all of that, because now the expectation is I can't do everything I used to do. Well, not that I can't do everything I used to do, but I can't take care of the family the same way I used to. I kind of need to keep a distance because I kind of don't want everybody else to get sick. And in that moment, it's like you've got to take care of yourself. And where do you draw the line when it comes to sort of self love and having compassion for yourself and knowing that in this time, this is what I need to do so that in the long run, I will feel better or I'll have the energy to do kind of what I need to do. So that was kind of the thought that I was having and was hoping, yeah, we could have a conversation around that.
Yeah, yeah. Self-love is a self-love is a bit of a hectic one. I think, like as you were speaking, like I saw so many flashbacks in my mind of like where I'm like, I agree, don't agree, I agree, don't agree. Because so for me, I think self-love gets in the way. Because for me, self-love at the end of the day is having regard for oneself and one's own well-being, right?
100%.
I think
Mm-hmm.
it gets hairy when we regard other people's opinions more than our own. Like how you feel about me is more important than how I feel about me. You know what I mean? Because that's where it can get
Mm-hmm.
very complicated, where I need
Yeah.
you, myself, for instance, to like me. Forget how I treat myself. How you feel about me is more important. So I regard your treatment of my of me more than what I do of myself. So that's the one. And then the compassion thing is always very tricky for me because I think you can be compassionate with someone and still not sacrifice yourself to give them what they need. You know what I mean? So I can empathize and
Mm-hmm.
recognize that myself, for instance, I can see that you're going through a lot and I empathize and I understand that. But right now, I don't have the capacity to help you in the way that you need me
100%.
to. I can show up to some extent, but not the full extent. So yeah, and then the other thing that you said that I thought was absolutely beautiful was you need to take of you for now because you know in future you'll be better. And I think that's potentially what I've personally struggled with was I
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand that with self-love there would be a lot of negative emotions within me that I'd have to weather in the sense that it's tough for me to say no to someone I can see is suffering or requires something of me, that I know I shouldn't be doing right now. In future, yes, but right now I just don't have the ability to do that. And I think people think that when you do that, like you fine, whatever. No, I actually feel bad. I'm just like, I didn't like saying no to Masego like that. It kind of sucked, but I understand why I had to. So I think with self-love, you also, while yes, you are trying to find peace and good emotions within you, if you cannot learn how to navigate the negative emotions in that period, then your future is doomed. You need to learn how to navigate the negative emotions in the moment to sometimes protect your future. Because if we make the situation peaceful now, if you push yourself harder than what you need to, you're gonna suffer in the future. That's just how it's gonna happen. And your family is inadvertently also gonna suffer as well because instead of it taking you 2 days to heal, now it takes you like a week. And then now you're miserable because you're like, these people, even when I'm sick, I so got so yeah, so self-love is
So
a,
it's
is a, is
it's
a
a
complicated one for me.
yeah, it's a slippery slope because I
Very,
always feel like you're like 1 minute you've like figured it out. Like I think we know, like mentally,
yeah,
theoretically, I think we understand it, and how you've put it, I think, is beautiful because a huge part of it, like you say, is navigating those negative emotions, which we oftentimes neglect to link to self-love because that's a huge part of it, right? And then we want to focus on the beautiful, pretty stuff, but the reality is it's not. So I think it's the constant reinventing and investing in your well-being and your happiness, and what it looks like today may not necessarily be what it is tomorrow. And I think that's the other thing, because of the like if there's that change, it can also be confusing, right? Because MK was a different person last week when I requested this of him,
yeah,
but not taking into account that he's going through his own things. And then at the same time, when I'm going through something, I expect what I got last time versus what I got. So it's just, I
yeah,
think that ever changing
yeah.
narrative is just difficult to adjust to.
I think so. I know I struggle. I'm not as bad with it now, right? Because I think I recognize it in myself, and I think if you recognize it in yourself, it'll be easier to recognize in others. So what I mean by that is growth is very tricky. So, and who Masego is today or who MK is today could be completely different tomorrow. Therefore, the rules of engagement kind of sort of change.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
endorsing it, but I feel like that's just been the experience so far. Just in case people want someone to be consistent, but we grow, people change, and we
Yeah.
change for a variety of reasons. I know personally, like when you have a real conversation with someone and you actually think about it, you become a different person after that because now you know more, your perspective's been challenged, you're a little bit different. It's like now me saying that you need to navigate negative emotions. For someone that could be like, I didn't know that. Now they might actually be more
Mm.
comfortable saying no and understanding. That's actually kind of normal. You see what I mean? So that's why I'm like, hey, growth is. So yeah, rules of engagement and how you love yourself sometimes does change. Um, I know one of the methods I used to think worked for me was I used to be like, I need to go meditate or like did journal, whatever. So I used to think that was like the thing. So I should do it in an effort to sort of like love myself and take care of my emotions and all of that stuff. It just never worked. It just never worked for me because I'm like, "But this is what people say you must do." So I always thought like I am like the messiest person on the planet. This is not working.
Mm.
And then you learn when you have conversations with people. No, there's different kinds of meditation. There's different ways to journal. There's different ways to express yourself. It doesn't have to look like someone else because it works for them. Because I think we sort of like gravitate and sort of look, oh, this works for Maseko. Maseko loves hiking, so therefore hiking must work for me. 2 kilometers in,
Yeah,
I hate
yeah.
my life. Like I'm just like, what is this? I'm just like, no.
You're the
Like,
problem, not the hike,
you know what I mean?
MK.
So yeah, so But yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with them.
But I think that brings a very valid point, because with sorry to interrupt you, is the constant comparing, right? Like you're saying, meditation is like one of the prime things people say
Yeah,
we should do,
yeah,
right? And if it's not working for me, there must be something wrong with me, because it worked for MK,
yeah,
right? So that constant comparing, I think, is also, I think, something everybody grapples with at one point or a time, one point or another in time, whatever English. But I think then it comes back to the whole self-love thing. Like at that moment, it's okay for you to not be able to engage with that, because you're just not able to, and
no,
it's okay. So what can you do at this point? And sometimes it's self-love is sometimes as simple as doing nothing, right? And I know I struggle with that, where it's like, even when I'm sick, it's like, just sleep or stay in bed or sit down and like be a vegetable, like do absolutely nothing. And I struggle with that, because I find I always have to be doing something. Like there always has to be cleaning, to be like something has to be done. And at that moment, the definition of self-love is completely different to another point in time.
yeah,
um, but also comparing yourself to what you maybe deem to be when you're at your peak, when you're not at your peak. So it's, I think that's also a very contentious
yeah. I think another
thing.
contentious thing,
Like, yeah,
another, sorry about that, Masoko. I think another contentious thing. So when my wife and I got married, so when my wife and I got
bring
married,
out the secrets.
hey, I'm bringing them out. Hopefully she doesn't watch those, but okay. I remember on the first week of our honeymoon, like one of the disagreements we had was, so when I'm tired and how I choose to sort of like recharge myself is literally to sit and do nothing. I don't want to talk. I don't want to do nothing. I'm doing nothing. Whereas for her, it's completely opposite. It's what you've discussed now. She's like, "Where's the nearest mountain? Let's go jump off it. Where's the nearest restaurant? Let's go eat there. Like, there's a beach there. Let's go jump in that thing." And I look at this guy, I'm like, just you talking is making me more tired. Like, how are you saying all of these things? And for her, it's like boring. What are you doing? Type thing. And
Yeah,
it was such a
yeah.
nice journey figuring out how to meet each other halfway and say and recognizing, oh, this is this person's self-love. So there's been moments when I have to recognize, okay, she needs this.
Mm,
So let me
mm,
go find a cliff to jump off as well. Or when I need it, we call it the sleeping Saturdays. Don't have that anymore because I have a child now. But yeah, so you just sleep
welcome.
and actually do nothing. So it's nice navigating that, but I think it took, like we said earlier, and it took understanding that you need to hold your own ground, but not in a my way or the highway, but I can't abandon my sense of self and what works for me, because if I do
Mm,
that, after a while, there's going to be resentment, frustration, and all of that stuff. So it's a matter of surrendering the ego in a sense, and then meeting and actually understanding what's happening. Um, yeah. So yeah, when it comes to building that self-love, I think it was also that, also understanding how do you also bring people on the journey to understanding how it is that you sort of recharge, understanding how you love yourself.
mm,
Because to another
mm,
person, it could look dismissive, it could look disrespectful, it could look apathetic, it could look like you're depressed even. And you're not, you're just silent. You just at that moment you genuinely, like, your brain is literally off. I know my brain can do that. I know it doesn't make sense, but it can literally just switch off and then that's it.
I don't know how y'all's brains just switch off,
Yeah.
but they do.
Yeah. So I think also self-love is also that. Prioritizing your mental well-being can also mean how do I include the people who are closest to me on this journey as well and help them understand that. Because it's pointless if you engage in self-loving behaviors, but then it just destroys the system in which you belong. It's not gonna, it's not gonna help. So that was also one of the lessons I knew I had to learn as well. So hey,
Yeah.
listen, this is how I work. Obviously, in the beginning, it won't make sense.
Yeah.
After a while, when you loving yourself actually does make you a better person, people will be more willing to sort of allow you to have that space type thing. Because now if you're gonna sit, well, if I sit by myself for like an hour and I come back and I'm still a terrible person, it won't make sense. Like, what is this?
Mm,
Type thing.
yeah.
But
Yeah, and I think also the willingness to say I maybe I don't understand what MK is saying, but or doing, but if that's important for him to engage in, then I've got to be okay with what that means to him. And I think that also then, like you say, comes back to how do we then communicate with the systems and the people around us, is with self-love. I think because it's such an individual thing. It's
yeah.
such a no one will completely or ever understand what the heck you're talking about,
Mm.
right? And I think that's hard because how do you what I articulated today to you might be completely different to the next day. And that like constant shift, like I was saying earlier on, is hard. But then in the same breath, I might be making mistakes in how I think I need to love myself. But that's okay because I've got to do that to get to the point where I learn what maybe the right way or the better way is. And I think that's another thing is that I think as people, we're just generally a lot harder with ourselves, right? We expect perfection. We expect we need to know it the first time. We expect because they've said meditation is the right way to go. I've got to be able to do it. And when you don't get it, then you're just so hard on yourself. And yeah, how do you navigate that negative emotion at that point?
Sure. I think a lot of it comes with awareness, but more than awareness, self-awareness, right? Because I think the whole you communicating something today and you communicating something tomorrow can also be energy dependent, right? So
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
when you're at 80% capacity, you're a bit more graceful, you're a bit more kinder. And then when you're at 50% capacity, maybe not so much, and so forth and so forth.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
maybe the actions that how I communicate can also just be that I'm not frustrated today, but tomorrow I'm frustrated because I've had this conversation with you. Then the day after, again, then now I'm more frustrated than usual. So I think that can be the case. And the other part of that awareness, I'm just shooting from the hip here. I think understanding that how you recoup at 80% is different from how you recoup at 50%, is different from how you recoup at 30%. And that's why it's important when you feel yourself like, I'm expending more energy than what I'm getting in. You need to catch that like immediately when it happens. Engage in whatever behavior it is, because you won't need as much time as when you're at 30%, for instance, to charge up to 100 or to charge up to an 80. So I guess self-love can also look like what small behaviors do you engage in daily that keep you sane? Because I think we only think of these things when something is wrong. And I'm against that. I like it shouldn't have to
Yeah.
get there for you to decide, oh crap, I need to go on vacation, or oh crap, I need to, I don't know, see a therapist, speak to a coach, whatever it is. I think building that awareness of you recognizing when you're not yourself, like immediately and engaging in something could be, I know, for instance, immediately when I feel like something is shady, like I'll get myself in a flurry. It is what it is. Like it makes me feel bad, and then I'm fine.
It
And then,
is what it is.
yeah, then I'm fine. But I think in instances where that might not work, because now I need to sit with myself and figure out what's happening with me. Um, so yeah, I think with self-love, a lot awareness is something that we need to engage in.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, obviously, you might not necessarily know what it is that you need to do because you've never been bothered asking. You've just rolled with the wind. I think in that moment, it's okay. It's okay to try different things and not like a lot of things to get to where you need to be. Like, it's really fine. Like,
Mhm.
I've tried the hiking. I know it doesn't work. I know it doesn't work because I've tried. I don't have to do it again. I know you love hiking. I'm like, no, thank you.
All
So,
day, every day.
you know what I mean? So I tried it. I tried the whole going outside, going for a walk. It doesn't work. I'll do it for health reasons, but not to make myself feel better. It just doesn't work. So I'm not going to neglect that because I understand the health benefits. So you try all these things because this is what society deems as this is self-care, whatever the case may be. Until one day I was like, forget this, man. I'm gonna go play PlayStation. And then you're like, oh, I feel better now. Thank you. And that's fine. So obviously,
Okay.
obviously I must negotiate that sometimes with the wife and be like, hey, listen. Um, so yeah, it's just that I think
Yeah,
being comfortable, being okay at going on an adventure to really figure out what does it mean for you personally to sort of engage in self-care behaviors. So yeah,
yeah.
I think that's that awareness. I think that's how you navigate that. And I would like to believe that if you're aware of why you're doing something, it'll be easier for you to deal with the emotions and the consequences that come thereafter because you understand the vision behind it. You understand where you're going. As long as you don't mean harm, you don't mean malice, I think it's easier to navigate. Not completely without difficulty, but easier to
Mhm.
navigate because you know, no,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm actually doing this for both you and I, or the world at large and I. So yeah, so that's that.
Excuse me. So I think, yeah, so I think do you have any practical ways of what people can start doing to tap more into sort of self-love? I often think it's like you can't get into a car and not have a destination,
Yeah.
right? Or you've got to be able to type it into ways and say, this is where I'm going. You know it's going to take you 15 minutes. You kind of know if there's police along the way, like what the obstacles are going to be. So for me, I think something that you definitely said is it's about having time on a daily basis, right? To work towards it, right? So have a plan, and it might not always be the same thing on a daily basis, but definitely being mindful of, do I have 5, 10 minutes to myself just to maybe today my self-love or my self-care activity is journaling. So I'm going to write about how I'm feeling or whatever. Tomorrow it's that I'm going to go for a walk, and while I'm walking, there's no phones, there's no distractions. It's about me being cognizant and observing, the things that are around me. What sounds am I hearing? What am I smelling? What am I able to touch? What are my feet touching? How am I stepping? So all of those things where I'm completely immersed in what I'm doing, irrespective of what it is. For example, if you're playing your PlayStation,
Mm.
um, and I know at times it's you kind of get lost in the moment of just playing, but there's times when you can be cognizant of, how am I kicking the ball today versus how I was yesterday? Do I have a little bit more aggression um, than other days? So for me, it isn't necessarily about what you're doing, but I think just being mindful and intentional about what am I doing? How is it affecting me? Or how am I responding to this activity differently versus, yesterday or the day before? But
Yeah.
being kind to yourself, because you're not always going to, I know with me in meditation, that also didn't work for me. I know you're allowed to like not focus and kind of, but for me, I just felt, no, man, that isn't the point of meditating. So for me, meditating isn't sitting down, and because people are like, do you have to have a yoga mat and sit down and all of, for me, meditating is going for a walk. So define what that is for you, but be cognizant of implementing whatever activity you've set out to do on a daily basis. Have a plan, have a weekly plan to say, in the week, these are the 5, 4, whatever it is, things that I'm actively going to do to show myself love, to show myself compassion, to give myself, a little bit of time when it's not about anybody else. And just being, I think for me, a very big thing is, and definitely a conversation you've still got to have, is vulnerability.
Yeah.
Being able to be vulnerable with yourself. Because if you can tap into that, it becomes so much easier for every other aspect. So yeah, I don't know for you, anything that sort of pops out.
I think from a practicality standpoint, you really touched on it. Sorry about that. So I when it comes to figuring out what it is that you feel like you need to do, like sometimes this sounds a bit corny, but ask your heart. Like, what is it that you would really love to do at this point? Sorry about that. I think it's sometimes asking yourself, like, what is it that you would really love to do at this point? Like if you could do anything, what's that one activity you're like, oh, this sounds cool. But if that's not possible, literally Google ways to
Mm,
self-love, and then just go off that list. Just go off it and be like, okay, this didn't
yeah.
work. And it's actually quite fun doing that, funny enough. We're like, oh, this was cool. Oh, no, this didn't work. Like the excitement to figure out what's going to work for me, I know is one of the things that really helped me. So yeah, I think that's what those are the two things. One, really ask yourself, what is it that I would like to be doing at this point? And if
Yeah.
that's still a bit tough, or you don't have like a wide enough toolbox or list, whatever the case may be, like Google it, and then literally just go down the list. Try meditate. Nope, that didn't work. Try PlayStation. Nope, that didn't work. Try getting an ice cream. Nope, that didn't work. Whatever. Until
I mean, for the moment it worked, but
yeah. But that's an 80% self-love. And so yeah, that's pretty much
sometimes we're allowed those 80%.
more than once in a day now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's literally me from a practical standpoint and how you do it.
Okay. So I think thinking now, challenge, trying, and maybe for the next conversation, um, try something different or something you've thought about doing when it comes to self-love. And yeah, let's see if we have anything to feed back on in terms of that. Maybe try meditating again and see if you feel differently about it. But yeah, challenge yourself to see, is there something new that you can tap into that you've never done before and see what the outcome is. How do you feel about it? What did you feel about? You might have hated it again, but that's okay. Now we know we're definitely never going to do it that again. But just challenge yourself to see, are there different things I can be doing in terms of loving myself? So showing myself appreciation, that positive self-regard. So I'm challenging you, and I'm going to think of something as well, challenge myself, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. And then let's see if let's see next week. Touch on what excuses did we give ourselves to not engage in that self-love.
Yeah, I've got a few already. Got a few already.
I'm already got a few. I'm like, I see why I'm not going to be able to do that. I see. So let's touch on that next week when we feedback.
That is actually very true. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll touch base again next week, and let's hear what you've done, and let's hear, if not, what the reasons are that you haven't done it. But yeah, it's been a good chat as always, and yeah, look forward to hearing about what you did or didn't do.
Cool. Bye, everyone.